Mom, you just asked, you don't know how old you were during that time. So let's figure it out. So we're talking about 1954. You were born in 1925, so you were 29 years old. 25, 35, 45, 55. Yeah,
We were involved in a lot of things, weren't we?
yeah. Okay, so I am continuing with Called to Serve, Autobiographies of Don and Doris Roth, Chapter 8, Columbia Union Conference Years, 1954 to 1965. So
Wow.
this is where I enter the picture, right? Yes. It was hard for me to believe that at the age of 27 that the Columbia Union Conference elected me as one of their staff members. The territory of this Middle Atlantic denominational unit includes all of Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia.
Wow.
With 4 years of experience working in a local conference, I now needed to expand this to all 396 churches of the Union with a membership of 37,000. I soon found that a great deal of my time would be devoted to working on the weekly editions of the Columbia Union Visitor. I had known the editor since my college days, and now we could merge our efforts to produce a readable weekly paper. Union papers are today published on a monthly basis. So there's a photo. This was the home of the Columbia Union Conference when Don worked there. So I'll show that.
And where was it?
It's right there by the campus of Washington Missionary College, which became Columbia Union College, which became Washington Adventist University, where you graduated and I graduated. Working on the Union paper, every Monday night I joined Warren Adams in doing the final editing on the paper
I remember him.
so that it would be ready for the presses on Tuesday morning. This included proofreading all of the pages, making the necessary corrections, and inserting them into the pages. This we completed in the makeup room of the Washington College Press where I had worked during my college years. Frequently, we had to stay up late because of unexpected problems with the pages. But most of
what?
the pages of the paper that they published, the Union paper.
Mm.
But most of the time we finished by 9:30 p.m., just in time to make a short trip to Silver Spring to celebrate the completion of another edition. Gifford's Ice Cream Shop
Get something to eat over there.
Yeah. Gifford's Ice Cream Shop had the best Swiss sundaes you could find anywhere. So I remember going to Gifford's many times and having Swiss sundaes. The program of the Public Relations Department included annual press workshops for the local church press secretaries.
Population?
The program of the Public Relations Department included annual press workshops for the local church press secretaries.
Oh.
It took quite a while to make our way through these 7 states and have day-long workshops. Many times we had help from the General Conference in the personages of J.R. Farron, Helen Smith, and later Howard B. Weeks.
Who's Helen Smith? I don't know.
Somebody from the General Conference.
Mm.
No workshops of this kind had ever been held in conferences outside of eastern Pennsylvania. Soon we had a network of functioning press secretaries in local churches. There are 2 photos here. Columbia Union Conference staff in 1954. Don is third from left in the back row. Elder Dan Oakes was the president, okay? So here is that photo. And then the second one is Elder and Mrs. Leo Hallowell from Brazil visited the Roth home. So there's
Hallowell.
that.
Is that the end of it?
No.
No.
Camp meetings. Another responsibility included coverage of the annual camp meetings, always a major news source for places such as Mount Vernon in Ohio, West Coastville in East Pennsylvania,
West Coast.
West Coastville,
West Coastville.
Somerset in West Pennsylvania, Catonsville in Maryland for the Chesapeake Conference.
Caton, what is it?
Catonsville, Catonsville.
Huh.
Parkersburg for West Virginia, Kingston for New Jersey, Pottstown in Pennsylvania for the Allegheny Conference, and Newmarket in Virginia for the Potomac Conference. We soon made friends with editors of large and small newspapers and managers of radio and television stations. In Parkersburg, West Virginia, the local paper gave us a page one coverage during the entire camp meeting. In Pottstown, I had the pleasure of working with a fine Christian gentleman who served as public relations secretary for the Allegheny Conference, Dr. Addison Pinckney. He and I soon made friends.
Oh, he's a black, isn't he?
Okay, I don't know. He and I soon made friends
Pinckney, sounds like it.
with the editor of the Pottstown Mercury, Shandy Hill. I still carry a press card that has no termination date issued by the Pottstown Mercury and signed by editor Hill. 2 newspapers issued special editions just for the camp meetings. The Allentown Call Chronicle did this for us for several years in a row. The Mercury did this at least 5 years in a row with excellent daily coverage in the paper.
So what was your job at that time?
Well, not my job. This is Dad's writing this. This is Dad's job.
Oh, yeah.
Dad was, let me get the exact titles. The Union Public Relations Secretary, Radio TV Secretary, and editor of the Columbia Union Visitor, and this is for the Columbia Union Conference. The Ed Petersons. During this time, I developed friendships with other departmental secretaries of the Columbia Union Conference and joined them in their union-wide functions. I recall vividly the day in 1958. Ooh, now we're getting close to when I was born. When Doris and I went to National Airport to pick up the newly elected Union Missionary Volunteer Youth Director Edmund Peterson, his wife Ruth, and their 2 children coming from Canada. They moved in next door to us on Prospect Street, and we became good friends.
Prospect Street.
Yep, 1206 Prospect Street. That friendship continued with Ed for 53 years until he died in June of 2003. Doris was pregnant, with me, when Petersons arrived. Our 3rd child, Daniel Andrew Jr., came into this world on November 20, 1958. Danny made our family complete. Oh, I'm so happy that I made your family complete. One of the additional responsibilities of a union staff member included membership on the Union Executive Committee. We met quarterly, and it usually lasted all day and sometimes into the evening. As plans materialized for union functions, the committee asked Ed and me to make advance arrangements for such events as union conference sessions, workers' meetings, union outings, and eventually a North American Division Youth Congress and a General Conference session.
Yeah, you worked hard.
No, Dad worked hard.
Yeah.
I was just born.
Oh, that's right.
Atlantic City, New Jersey was the venue for most of these meetings. During these years, accommodations for conventions and meetings were easily available at good prices during the off-season. The summer was very busy at the shore with vacationers, but the rest of the year, the Atlantic City Convention Center went overboard to do business with us. Ed and I made numerous trips to Atlantic City to make advance arrangements for these meetings. In all of the trips we made there, I do not recall ever paying for the rooms or suites assigned to us. Our friend in the convention, the rooms or suites, they never paid for the hotel.
Oh.
Our friend in the convention center arranged all this. We brought our families to the ocean resort for a number of days, all at their expense. Ordination to the gospel ministry. Ordination to the gospel ministry was a highlight of my work in the Columbia Union Conference. I had never expected to be ordained since most ordinations were given to men who served as pastors or evangelists. Except for a few months while I worked for the East Pennsylvania Conference, I had not served full-time as a pastor. But I had preached in churches all over the East Pennsylvania Conference. In the Union, I did the same thing in every local conference. In the year 1959, the Columbia Union Conference scheduled a quadrennial session at the Dennis Hotel in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Delegates came from every conference as well as a large delegation from the General Conference. One afternoon during this session, they scheduled an ordination service just for me. What an exciting time to realize that the committee had enough confidence in me to grant me this crowning achievement for any minister of the gospel. My mother and father came from Philadelphia, where they were working in the East Pennsylvania Conference. What a proud moment for them.
Wow.
My sister Mary and Runge kept our Danny so Doris could attend. During this time, he came down with chicken pox. So I had chicken pox in 1959. A number of ministers participated in this ordination led by Elder L.E. Lenheim, Lenheim, Lenheim or Lenham, Union President,
Not sure.
including Elder R.R. Figure, President of the General Conference, Figure, my father, Elder D.F. Roth, Elder William B. Oakes, President of the North American Division,
Wow.
and Elder R.A. Anderson, Secretary of the Ministerial Association of the General Conference. And here's a photo right here, captioned, Don's ordination took place at a union session in Atlantic City, New Jersey in 1959. See, they're laying hands on him in the ordination ceremony. And there it is. Union Conference Presidents. I served a total of 4 Union Conference Presidents during the time I worked in the Columbia Union from 1954 to 1965, all 4 neighbors of ours on Prospect Street in Tacoma Park. Elder Daniel Oakes was president when I first came to Tacoma Park in this new post, but he soon retired. The committee then elected Elder V.J. Anderson from the Southern Union Conference as our new president, but at the next General Conference session, he became a vice president of the World Field.
I don't remember his name.
The next president, Elder Louis E. Lenham, previously served as president of both the Lake Union and the Atlantic Union conferences, and he and his wife were also next door neighbors of ours. The stories surround
What's their last name?
Lenham, Lenheim. The stories surrounding the
I was probably overseas at that time.
No, because we didn't go overseas till 1965, so you were still living in Tacoma Park, and I was too. Okay. The story surrounding the closing days of the regime of L.E. Lenham is too detailed and involved for me to relate at this point, but we did have a need for a new president when Elder Lenham retired from administrative work in 1963. So the use of the word regime is interesting. I'm thinking that may have a negative connotation, maybe not. A unique election. The Union Conference Committee that met for this election proved to be one that I will never forget. 2 years previously, the Union had invited a young religious liberty worker.
Slow down a little bit, huh?
Okay.
Okay.
The Union Conference Committee that met for this election proved to be one that I will never forget. 2 years previously, the Union had invited a young religious liberty worker from the Central California Conference to join our Union staff, Elder Neil C. Wilson. He had mission experience in Egypt and the Middle East and had legal abilities in the area of religious liberty. It became apparent that support for Neil Wilson grew among his fellow workers in the Union. When the nominating committee met, his name showed up on the board along with a dozen others, some suggested by the General Conference. Both Elders Figure and Oakes represented the General Conference at this meeting. They came with a candidate, a longtime president of the North Pacific Union Conference who needed a change, but nobody in our union knew this person at all. After the first ballots were counted, Neil Wilson had the largest number of votes, followed with a scattering of votes for Marvin Lowen, Don Hunter, T.E. Unruh, and 1 or 2 others of the local conference presidents. Nobody voted for the GC nominee. With great dismay, the visiting GC officers viewed the results of the vote. Elder Figure called for a recess, and met privately with Elder Wilson. It was evident that he tried to get Neil to withdraw his name from the list. After all, Elder Wilson had never before served as a local conference president in North America, and in those days, one receiving appointments as a union conference president only after serving on the local conference level. Elders Lowen, Unruh, and Hunter were well qualified for the post, but they had not been too kind to union departmental persons when we visited their fields. Elder Lowen gave good support for my work in Ohio, but I never felt any great support from Elder Hunter. The bulk of the votes for Elder Wilson came from the departmental secretaries and several of the conference presidents who supported Neil in the nomination. We reconvened and cast another vote. The final vote was still heavily for Elder Wilson. The chairman could not do anything else but declare Elder Neil Wilson as the new president of the Columbia Union Conference. He was to be my boss for the next 2 years. The Union Conference headquarters was just 2 miles or so down the street from the General Conference. I became friends with staff members like James Chase, Elmer Waldy, J.R. Farron, and J.O. Iverson.
I don't remember them so much.
Death of a president. In November of 1963, Elder Waldy invited me to a dinner meeting to discuss some items relating to the radio TV department. We dined at Lido's, a special pizza place on University Boulevard in the Tacoma Park area.
What about that?
They had a meeting at Lido's Pizza, and I remember very distinctly getting pizza from Lido's Pizza and Leone's Pizza. I recall this day so well because during our meal, an announcement came on the restaurant's public address system with the news that an assassin had shot President John F. Kennedy in Dallas, Texas. We finished up the meal quickly and headed home to follow the news. The president died, of course, that afternoon. Attention focused on radio and television news of this tragic event in the history of the United States of America. I admired President Kennedy and even voted for him despite the fact that he was a Democrat and a Roman Catholic. Wow, I don't know that Dad really needed to say that. I thought that he would make a good president of the USA. For the next few days, the attention of the nation focused on funeral activities for the fallen president. Practically everything stopped in its tracks. Oh, here's, going back to the previous section, here's a photo of Union President Neil C. Wilson urged on to take the call overseas. There's Elder Wilson. After his burial in Arlington Cemetery, the nation returned to work, and President Lyndon B. Johnson took over the very difficult task of leading this country, especially during the tumultuous days of the Vietnam conflict.
Tell me once again about what happened.
Okay, John F. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22 of 1963, which happened to be the day that Elder Waldy and Dad had a meeting at Lido's Pizza. So Dad remembered that date.
He did, huh?
Advisory councils. During my years of public relations work in the Columbia Union Conference, I served as a member of the advisory committee of the General Conference for Public Relations. At the first annual meeting, I met all of the other PR persons, but the one who attracted my attention was the representative from Canada, Elder Darren Michael. He and I became great friends.
Darren Michael.
Do you remember him? I don't remember that name at all.
I don't.
And when he died unexpectedly at a relatively young age, the family asked me to come to Toronto to take part in his funeral service.
Toronto?
Yeah.
Where is that?
In Canada. I never knew then that years later I would be a caretaker for his stepmother, Dorothy Michael, who spent the last years of her life in the Loma Linda area. I also served as a member of the Radio TV Advisory Council, and we met on a regular basis in various parts of the country. One such meeting convened in Denver. This gave me an opportunity to take Doris and our 3 children on an auto trip across the country to see some famous sites en route. Other venues
Famous what?
Famous sites en route.
Spites?
Sites,
Oh.
places to see.
Oh, okay.
Other venues included Miami Beach, Florida, Glendale, California, and Tacoma Park, Maryland. I became acquainted with some of the, quote, greats of the General Conference and North American Division.
The what?
The greats, the great people.
Oh.
I had such great respect for such men as Charles Longacre, Francis D. Nichol, HMS Richard Sr., and William Fagel. Okay, so there's a photo here captioned, "Here is Don with his local conference public relations directors." Oh, and Dad is in the front row, right in the middle. He's right there. I know you can't see it. Okay. Working for Faith for Today. One phase of my career story actually took place while I served in the East Pennsylvania Conference.
Serving the what?
Served in the East Pennsylvania
The
Conference.
cause?
One phase of my career story actually took place while I served in the East Pennsylvania Conference.
East Pennsylvania.
Elder William Fagel, then pastor of the Washington Avenue Church in Brooklyn, New York, had been asked by the General Conference to begin a television program for the denomination. Soon, Faith for Today aired in New York City with live programs. They started making kinescopes, copies of the program that could be used on other stations.
Cinescopes.
Well, it's spelled Kinescopes. Kinescopes?
I guess.
Copies of the program that could be used on other stations throughout the nation. In those days, new TV stations popped up all over the nation. I noted that we had new stations all over the East Pennsylvania region, such as Allentown, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, Lancaster, Harrisburg, York,
Wow.
Easton, and Reading. I called Elder Fagel one day and asked if I could have a kinescope to take to some of the new stations to see if they would air the program on a public service basis. Over a period of time, I added at least 15 new stations to the list showing the new TV program on the air. Months later, Elder Fagel called my boss, Elder Unruh, and asked him if he would lend me to Faith for Today for a swing through the South in an attempt to enlarge the number of stations.
A swim?
A swing.
A swim.
A trip. Nobody else had any experience doing this. Reluctantly, Elder Unruh agreed, and I then planned a trip that would take me south to Miami, west to New Orleans, and back to Washington, D.C. I think that we added at least 25 new stations on that tour. I was able to take along my wife, Doris.
I remember you going on that.
You remember you going on that, right? So I wasn't there. So it says, I was able to take, your husband, Don, was able to take along my wife, Doris, and 5-year-old son, David, while grandmother, Beringer, took care of little Diane at her home in Washington, Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
It doesn't say anything about me. So here's
grandmother.
Here's two photos.
Olive. What was her name? Olive. I'm not sure.
Part of Don's job was radio TV secretary. Here he is with William Fagel, Elmer Waldy, and Ernest Winth. A member of the Faith for Today quartet, Stanley Schleenbaker, is at the left. So Dad...
Ernest Went?
Winth. W-E-N-D-T-H. Winth.
When? I don't know.
So Dad is second from the right. And then the other photo is one of the family's favorite photographs was this one taken on Treasure Island Beach, Florida, with Doris and young David feeding seagulls. The family was on a Faith for Today trip.
Feeding seagulls?
Seagulls. Birds. The family was on a Faith for Today trip visiting TV stations in the South. So this one is kind of hard to see, but there it is. There's you, who in a bathing suit, and Dave feeding seagulls. A trip south. During the time I served in the Columbia Union Conference, I made several other such trips for Faith for Today, including a trip across Canada with the man they hired to do this work full time, Ernest Wenth. Several times, Elder Fagel asked me to join the New York office on a full-time basis, but I felt compelled to stay with Elder Unruh and the program he wanted me to follow. When I went to the Columbia Union Conference office, I made a number of trips with Elder Fagel and then with Ernest Wenth to visit key stations around the country. What a pleasure to work with Elder Fagel, a man I greatly admired. I also became well acquainted with members of the quartet as they met appointments around the Columbia Union Conference.
What quartet was this?
This is the
Oh, well.
what was the name of the, I don't remember. I had many interesting experiences during the time we served in the Columbia Union Conference. Before Ed Peterson joined our staff as youth director, Arthur Patzer served as the youth man of the Union. He had arranged a 50th anniversary celebration of the founding of the MV, Missionary Volunteer Department of the General Conference, which would be held at Mount Vernon Academy in Ohio. MV, Missionary Volunteer. The place where the department was first formed. Visit with a vice president. Oh, wow. I guess I did not know this. So let's read this. Elder Patzer had made arrangements for the Vice President of the United States, Richard Nixon, to be the featured speaker at the anniversary event. A couple weeks ahead of the appointment, Elder Patzer received word from Nixon's office that President Eisenhower had commissioned Nixon to take an overseas trip during the time of the Mount Vernon event. He invited Elder Patzer and others to the Union office, to his office at the U.S. Capitol, where he personally gave us a message to be read to the delegates in attendance. Of course, Elder Patzer asked me to come along to take the obligatory pictures. To this day, I have in my office on display a photo taken by Elder Patzer of me shaking hands with Richard Nixon. And here is the photo. There's Dad, and there's Richard Nixon. And the caption reads, Dawn with Vice President Richard Nixon, prior to the 50th anniversary program of the church's MV department held at Mount Vernon, Ohio. So here's Dad shaking hands with Richard Nixon. Contact with a Pitcairn Islander. There was another event during our Union Conference days that I considered to be of great interest and importance. At the General Conference session in Cleveland, Ohio in 1958, Parkin Christian served as one of the official delegates from the South Pacific Division as a representative from Pitcairn Island, the center of much attention during the session
The center
itself.
of what?
The center of much attention during the session itself. After the GC meetings were over, the General Conference asked the Columbia Union Conference to arrange for local church appointments for Parkin Christian in our territory. Ed Peterson and I took on this assignment with eagerness. What a delightful time we had making appointments over a period of several weeks in churches all over the Mid-Atlantic states region. At every place we took Parkin, we had a series of radio and TV appointments and plenty of newspaper coverage. During part of this time, Parkin stayed in our home on Prospect Street in Tacoma Park, Maryland.
Do you need better light
Nope,
there?
no, I'm fine.
Good for you.
Yeah. In the daytime, he sat under our large oak tree in the backyard and carved small models of the American ship Pitcairn that went to the island to give the gospel to the survivors of the people who took part in the mutiny on the Bounty fame. He also signed slips of paper with his autograph that we gave out to people attending our meetings featuring Parkin and the story of Pitcairn Island. We had maximum attendance everywhere we took him. Before making arrangements for Parkin to return to Pitcairn Island, we responded to an urgent appeal from the Bermuda Mission for him to visit there. Ed Peterson and I arranged to take our spouses along on this trip.
Take ourselves along?
Our spouses.
Oh.
That means you. Our first overseas, with the help of some courtesies given to us by Eastern Airlines, now a defunct air carrier. We had several very busy days in Bermuda with Parkin, including radio and TV appointments and services in several island churches. At the end of his time there, we bid goodbye to Parkin as he made his way to the West Coast and then back to his Pacific Island home. The Petersons and Roth stayed for a few additional days of vacation in Bermuda. Okay, so here's a photo captioned, "A very special visitor to the Roth home was Parkin Christian of Pitcairn Island." And there it is. Okay. Mission call. One day in the winter of 1964 to 65, Neil Wilson phoned and asked me to come to his office. Many times I showed up in his office as we worked together on many projects as a team. This time he said he had a request from the Secretariat of the General Conference to discuss a possible overseas mission call. Since Elder Wilson served as a longtime overseas worker in the early days of his ministry, he readily gave his consent. Elder C.P. Sorensen, President of the Far Eastern Division, and Dwayne Johnson, Associate Secretary of the General Conference, both talked to me in terms of a call to the Far Eastern Division in Singapore, where they wanted me to become Public Relations Director of the Division, Editor of the Division paper, and most importantly, an Assistant Secretary of the Division. It overwhelmed me to realize they would be asking a 38-year-old with no previous overseas experience to take on these responsibilities. So here's a photo. L.E. Lenham, Union president at the time, and Don met with lawyers representing Charles Kettering when he offered to build a hospital in Dayton, Ohio. So that doesn't have any relationship to the wording.
Last name?
Lenham.
Lenham.
Some complications cropped up that I later learned about. Talk of dividing the Far Eastern Division. So the official call did not come until the spring of 1965, as voted by the appointees and General Conference committees. Without hesitation, Elder Wilson gave me the call and urged me to take it. It will be the best decision that you have ever made, he said. He was so right.
Where were you supposed to go?
Singapore.
Oh.
Union work terminated. So plans soon developed for us to terminate our work in the Union the last part of May, go on a 1-month jaunt to visit relatives, and then leave July 27 for Singapore. They needed me there as quickly as possible because the division secretary, A. Edwin Gibb, was on furlough and work had piled up. On the way to Singapore, the family visited Hawaii, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, the Philippines, and Thailand. In Japan, we were able to visit my brother Harold, who is on duty with the United States Air Force.
Oh, I remember that.
He introduced us for the first time to a foreign culture. I think I remember that as well. I was just 6 years old, but I think I remember his convertible.
6?
Yeah. Thus ended my 11 years as a member of the Columbia Union Conference staff. We left after doing our best for the Lord in that region. The future would bring even greater challenges. Isn't that something? You have any thoughts about that period of your time living in Tacoma Park before you left for Singapore?
Before we left for Singapore.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, is that the end?
That's the end of that chapter.
Oh, there's more chapters.
Sure.